call to order. 6:32.
And will you do the roll, please?
Okay, Ms. Bates.
Here.
Mr. Gussenberg and Ms.
Here.
Kemp.
Here.
And we have a quorum present.
Very good.
And the flag is over there.
And our flag is over there, okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. I see this meeting basically as being a time where we can kind of pull together all the ideas that we've had. So I wanted first to go through each of the meetings, talk a little bit about it. We can accept the minutes as we go along. And then to talk about the presentation that we want to do for the full committee beginning of April. So let's just take a look at the agenda. The first school we went to was Doolittle on February 5th. And we do have the minutes for that. We also have some suggested changes for those minutes. But I didn't know if, before we accept the minutes, if we wanted to discuss any specific
There are
issues
changes
or
to the
ideas.
Doolittle minutes? Oh, I didn't.
Isn't that, oh no, this is not
No,
Doolittle, this is for
No,
Homestead.
Homestead had
This
the
is for
changes.
Homestead.
That's the only one
Okay.
that I got notice on for changes. But
Okay.
it's up to you guys, whatever you
Yep.
decide.
Well, before we accept the minutes, is there anything in particular that we want to note about the Doolittle conversation?
For me personally, I felt like the issues at Doolittle are predominantly maintenance and not real major facility issues. I think it's one of our nicer schools. I think they all felt like their classroom sizes were adequate. Obviously, same things that we heard everywhere. HVAC, moisture, storage. I mean, they had, is this the place that had the mice? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, these,
That was-
you know, mice and
Or a
snakes, you know,
snake.
like.
I think she had a snake, I don't know if it was a mouse,
Yeah, so,
No, they had mice.
Mice.
yeah, so like,
Mice and snake in classroom.
you know, so but I think over, you know, bats, they even had bats.
Yes.
So those are problems. I don't think those are problems that necessarily this group is
Yeah, I
sensitive,
mean,
right?
almost
But
every
fac-
school
but
I've been in, I've had a
facility-
bat at one time or another.
Yeah, but I also
I mean,
feel,
that
yeah,
happens.
and again, I guess the question
like a
is on the maintenance, is that are our maintenance issues so big? And I know the maintenance staff does a wonderful job making the schools look good, but like, are they so big that our normal Board of Ed operation budget just is not addressing these things? Because I'm sure when these things are happening, they're being elevated, right? So, I don't know.
That's a fair point.
You know, like,
Yeah.
is our budget, just is our operating budget not big enough to handle the day-to-day kinds of stuff that we heard? Like,
Well,
I
I
mean,
think one of the things that, because you heard it across the board.
yeah,
Yeah.
My sense is that we've been trying to squeeze the maintenance
Everything,
budget
yeah.
for a number of years. And, you know, when given the choice, do we want to do something that's going to directly affect kids by laying off teachers? Or do we want to take some money out
Right.
of the maintenance budget? We've tended to do that. So,
So I
you know,
think-
when we talk about we're going to replace, you know, 3 windows a year or
Right.
something like that, it's just not enough going into
No, it's
the
just-
maintenance to
it's
keep up
ridiculous.
these old
Like, by the time we
buildings.
finish a building, we're gonna have to start all over again. It's gonna take us 30 years to replace the windows in some of these buildings.
Right.
So as part of this committee, we're not, well, I guess we have to decide, is Doolittle a school that we're going to keep? Are we going to renovate it? Are we going to build a new one? And then, if it is something that we're renovating, then we have to then take a look at these different issues that they're having.
Right.
Because if we're gonna build a new one, not that I'm saying we are, but if that is the option that we end up
Right,
going
we
with,
would be
we're
looking
not
at
going to build a
Right.
school with holes for bats, so that's not an issue anymore.
Right.
So I think we have to decide, maybe we have a plan of saying, okay, if this is a school we end up renovating, these are the things we must address. And it's being addressed as part of our committee, or is it going to be addressed as part of regular maintenance?
And I think the timeline will matter
Yeah,
too,
that depends.
because there's so many needs out there, because our buildings are so old, that, you know, you may not get to a school like Doolittle for 10 years.
Right.
So obviously, you can't wait 10 years and not
Right,
do
to fix
maintenance.
things.
You're
Yeah.
gonna have to be doing things as you go along, with the idea that maybe 10 years from now, we are gonna look to either do a full renovation or replace it or something.
Yeah, and it's tough, like, is that our job
I was
as
just
part
gonna
of this
say-
committee?
I was gonna
To
say-
be able to prioritize these and say, okay, we're not gonna get to this school for 10 years, this is what you need to do now as
Right.
part of maintenance.
And I think part of this job as this subcommittee was to hear most specifically about what things in our buildings are preventing teaching and programming and things of that nature. And I think that has to be the primary focus in terms of what we bring back to the larger group. And then there may also be like a supplemental information that's just like, look, these are other things, because you're right, I mean, I can't imagine, I mean, of all our elementary schools, Doolittle certainly wouldn't be one that we're gonna say we're, you know, unless we decide to do something in terms of using that school or space
that
for a
space.
different school, that's a different story. But otherwise, if it was to stay in elementary school, I don't see us investing in a renovation of that building at this time. But there are things that should be addressed as part of maybe, whether we somehow fit it under modernization, it's not necessarily, it's the fact that if we're moving forward schools that are old, these are the things we need to do to at least get them.
Yeah, and as you pointed out at the beginning, I think all of the schools have maintenance issues.
Yeah, and HVAC
Some more
issues,
serious
good
than
Lord.
others. Some have issues, and we'll, as we go through, we
Yeah,
can take a
with-
look at it, that really
Yeah, it-
cause program
Correct,
issues.
correct.
So as we decide what we're gonna present back to the full
Yeah.
committee, part of it is
Yeah.
we heard from the Doolittle staff. There are a lot of maintenance issues that are involved there, but overall, the building seems to be functioning adequately for an elementary program.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I thought was really important at Doolittle is getting the kindergarten in there, and that
Yeah.
might be something that we need
Yeah.
to address as part of our project.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they did suggest support for moving the sixth grade out
Right.
and wanted the kindergarten in.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Be the
Yeah.
only school that doesn't have the kindergarten program.
Yeah.
I'm assuming as we move all the chess pieces around,
There'll
that'll
be
be one of
room
the
for
things
them.
we keep in
Yeah.
mind, yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely.
All right, anything else on Doolittle?
Now, this is an aside note, I'm just looking at it like, I can't imagine, it says HVAC is an issue in like every single building. Couldn't we do something with whatever buildings we're keeping where someone comes in and we get some kind of arrangement to get all of these things like addressed at one time? Like, wouldn't somebody work with us to give us, like,
Well, I
it's like
know
a
they're
break, it's like
doing
when
it
you
in
do
bits
a
and
lot,
pieces.
but like you don't get a break when you do things in
Right.
bits and pieces. Sometimes when you contract with someone to take on like a big job, they'll give you a break, you know. And this is not our realm, but it's like, it's just,
Yeah.
it's crazy that it's such an issue.
something we could talk to someone like Vince about, but I'm sure they probably have different systems in different schools. Some of them are old and clunky and very hard to maintain.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot that's been done. I don't know what the nature of it would be,
Yeah.
but it obviously is an issue that's come up in most of the schools. Some rooms are 90 degrees,
Chapman.
Loud
and
and
some
clear.
rooms
I
are
mean, it's
60.
like, it's an issue for
That one
across
room in
the board.
Chapman when we went through was amazing.
It was horrible.
The hallway was fine, you walk in that door and all of a
And you
sudden it was
were
90
cooking.
degrees.
I could not imagine
It's
being a
crazy.
student and
Just
sitting
like-
in there all day.
My kids went to that school, it was unbearable at the beginning and ends of the year, unbearable.
Truly.
It was
Yeah.
unbearable to be, you know,
Truly.
and
Yeah,
then
you
you
know
have,
that building.
and unfortunately, you have a lot of people when it comes to air conditioning, things like that, in school buildings that just go back to, oh, we never had it and, you know, it's all fine, but it's hot. Those buildings- You can't really expect kids
They
to,
truly are
pay
experiencing
attention.
global warming. Look
Yeah,
at this winter.
it's
You
crazy.
can imagine, we may have a lot
Yeah.
of 90-degree days come
Yeah.
spring.
yeah, no
June.
kidding, yeah, it's
So
gonna be
we'll
tough.
see.
The other,
Right,
the other
oops.
thing about Doolittle is that they had mentioned that there's no speakers outside.
Yeah, yep.
So I don't know if that's something where we could put that on our list to make sure that all the schools have outside speakers to hear announcements.
Well, what I have
Interesting
done
safety issue.
is, and I know that the minutes have gone to Vince and to Rich, head of maintenance, but I've also, you know, that spreadsheet that
Yep.
I did, I also gave them permission to see that.
Okay.
So those kinds of things have been on there, so they are seeing those notes,
Mhm.
although I don't recall whether the speaker thing was on that or not. But we'll see.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's-
do I have a motion then to approve the minutes?
So moved.
of
Second,
February 5th? Okay. Any other further discussion? Then all those in favor? Unanimous. Second meeting was at Hummiston School on February 6th.
I was not there.
Well, this was an interesting one, because, you know, I think partly we started off, when we talk about whether a program
It's amazing.
is being hurt by the facility, we started off, Jen and I asked them, could you just describe your program for us? And they are so proud of the work that they're doing with 25 to 30 high school students who just cannot function in a large high school, and the program that they're providing. And they're trying to provide a complete program under, in my estimation, some of the worst conditions I've seen. You know, a science program with no science lab at all, borrowing stuff from the high school.
A gym that they can't run in.
A gym that you can't run in or are not allowed to
Throw a
bounce
ball.
balls in.
Can't throw a ball.
Not
Because
just that
it's,
you're not allowed, but right, the sprinkler system and is in
the ceiling's
and
low, the
ceilings are too
sprinklers are
low.
there, there's classrooms right below, so if you're bouncing balls and stuff, disturbing the classrooms. Bathrooms that are between the rooms, which kindergarten students could use, but I know of no high school age student that would use those.
And the doors weren't closing properly.
Right, doors didn't close, couldn't be locked. An
There's-
office that's down in the basement with no sight lines to the front of the building.
The art classroom had very little art supplies.
Right.
They have no music program there at all.
Right, no
Nursing
music.
cot.
No nursing,
Oh,
no
that room
nursing,
where you-
no
where the
nursing
nurse
office at
goes,
all.
where people eat lunch, where they
Filing,
do
filing, nurse,
yeah,
lunch,
multi-purpose
all
rooms.
Yeah, so here you have
Yeah,
high
room
school, high
half
school
the
level
size of this
students.
room.
So and
And
no handicap accessibility.
Yeah. Like,
So, you know, you've got a 3-story building that does not have an elevator, and you've got students who may absolutely need this program who do not have the ability to go up and down those stairs.
no, I think that, I mean, it would seem, just anecdotally and through conversations, that there is certainly universal support that this is one of the buildings that we should be closing, and it's just a matter of new space for that program, wherever that's going to be. But I think beyond just the limitations of the building, the cost of the building, the fact that there's really, it could never be brought up to code at this point, it's
No,
beyond
you'd have
help.
to totally gut it and rebuild it.
I just think it is, to your point, from a programming standpoint, it is completely inadequate, and it's certainly a priority in terms of where do we move that program. You know,
Right.
when we start looking at all our buildings and reshuffling, we need a new home for the alternative high school.
And I personally want to make sure it doesn't get lost.
Yeah, no, and it
Because
can't.
it's only for,
Yeah.
you know, 25 to 30 kids, it's a very small
Yep.
program, and as we get into our bigger discussion,
Yep.
that program could just kind of get lost in all the shuffle.
Yep.
And so as we're getting into this,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that that's.
I
Well,
agree.
I think one of the things that will help us, though, that why it won't get lost is just the, from a financial standpoint, we can't afford to keep Humiston open. You know, like it costs so much to operate that building as it
Right.
is now, so we have to find a new home, and I know, like, they rely so much on running back and forth to the high school. I don't think it needs to be anywhere located near the high school if it doesn't turn out to be needed. It just means it needs to be self-sufficient wherever we put it. Like, if the only
Right,
reason
but
it's close to the
They
high
like
school.
the idea of being
Yeah.
close to the high school, but part of that is because they're sharing.
That's what I mean, if you weren't
they're
sharing
a
things,
nurse,
well-
they're sharing science equipment, you know, there's
But
things
not,
like that.
and not only that, but there are some of the kids that go to Humiston, but then
Partial.
they go to the high school for like
Okay.
football
For certain
or
programs.
band.
Yep.
So
Okay.
there is transportation.
That, okay.
Yeah, and we did talk about that, they said they'd like to be close, but not too close.
Yep.
Yeah, so they do like the idea of being able to get over there, although they made it very clear, the vast majority of their students do not wish to go over there for educational programs. They sometimes make that available. We
Yeah.
can't provide something within our program, but we can provide it at the high school. And they said their kids, in
Decline.
general, have
Don't
had
want to.
negative experiences there. That's just not a place that they want to be.
Do we know how other districts have similar programs? Or
Well,
how
I
they
worked in
do that?
Region 15, and yes, they had one. It used to be in the basement of our central office. Same kind of
Similar.
situation,
Huh.
very small, inadequate.
That's interesting.
So they moved it back to the high school. They took a wing of the high school, and my understanding is that failed miserably. That those
Okay.
kids back in the
Don't
high
want to be
school
in that
did not
building.
function. And so the last I heard was they were converting a house that was near the high school into a new alternative high
Gotcha.
school. So it's a fairly common program. I think, you know, in fact, many schools have gone much further and have really expanded it, because I think that, you know, right now, it's the very end of all of our interventions that we make.
Mhm.
You know, we try everything first. But I'm sure if you went out and said, you know, gee, who do we have who really would function better in a smaller environment, you could probably come up with a whole lot more kids. So you could, you know, expand it if you change the nature of the program.
Do they break those kids up by grade, or like, is this, like, they just all go
Like
the same
courses.
program though?
So
It
there's,
depends on what courses they need.
Okay.
there was 4 classrooms, and there's like a science room, a social studies room,
Okay.
an English room, and a math room, and all kids from all ages or grades can
Friends
go
are
in the
together.
same class together, and then they just individualize their instruction throughout
Okay.
the hour, whatever time period that they're.
So they're gonna have different levels
Yep, all.
within one room, but you've got fairly small groups
Yeah,
of kids
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
working with.
So I think this is unique because we could do something immediately about this. I mean, we could just move them and lease another space. I mean, we had
There's
talked
no
about
other
that.
space.
Well, not necessarily space that we currently own, but some other
Oh,
building. I had talked with somebody in the town council who said it would be cheaper to lease a space from a private building rather than continue to keep Humiston online.
Well, I
Yeah, if
think
you-
that's something that, you
Yes,
know,
yeah.
is part of the plan. Do you go
Right.
ahead and lease a space now when you know that something, you know, I think
Right.
it's definitely
There's
part
a lot
of
of
the
balance.
scope of this group to, the larger group to come up with what that school modernization
Right.
plan would be.
Because we
Yeah.
could do something in the short term and just get them in Humiston shut down and maybe save some money in the interim, and then have a long-term plan for them as well.
You'd have to have
Or-
office space for the
Right.
for office too.
Yep. Or we just wait and keep them here until we have a plan, but in the meantime, we could be saving money if we do something immediately.
But that might
It's
be
worth
something
looking
to
at.
look at.
It's definitely worth looking
And
at.
what you do with that building is gonna be up to the town council.
Right.
It's a beautiful building from the
Yeah,
outside.
it should be a historic building.
I would hate to see it, taken
It
down.
has to be used for education.
Well,
There's a
there's been some
whole-
question about that. I was
Yeah.
talking to Rob Orris about that, and he
It
said
has,
that,
that's been one of the
That's,
Yeah.
things
that was how it
that's
was
cited.
sent, it was
Ah.
sent to the
The
town.
house didn't willed it to
Right.
the town,
right.
That's interesting.
But there's also, there's some discussion about whether or not they could
get around.
get around it somehow.
Or, I don't know if there's family members who would release it.
Right.
I mean, that'll be up to the lawyers, not us.
Not our problem, I guess, but that's
All right.
interesting.
Anything else on Humiston? Now, take a motion to approve the minutes for the, we did have
Wait,
changes
yeah,
to the Humiston.
there are changes, and I did
Yep.
listen to the tape, and some of what is here is correct, but it's not exactly what was said, so we can amend the minutes per the, what, you said
Which
this, right,
one,
Rich?
which specifically are we talking about?
The first page here,
On the
Okay.
front,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at that.
Yeah,
there's there's the bulleted piece, and then underneath it says, I noted 2 changes.
Okay.
And there's 2 different pieces there.
yeah.
So if you want to take a look at those.
Right, so I think the question was, you had listed in the minutes that it said all students were special, or were identified as special ed and have IEPs.
Right, and that's not the
And
case.
that's not-
They
that
made
was
that clear.
incorrect.
It was just
Okay.
the
So, yeah,
opposite.
It's just
Right.
the
They said
opposite,
that
yeah.
not
And you
all of
agreed
the
with that once you
students.
listened to the tape?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I'm
Not all
saying,
of the
yeah.
students have
Okay.
IEPs. So that's why I just wanted to correct.
So what we can do is take this first paragraph that Mr. Gussenberg cited,
Mhm.
and I'll just include it as an amendment to the minutes for Humiston
Okay.
School. When you decide to put the motion on the floor.
All right.
It'll be minutes as amended.
Do you want to do it as 2 different motions?
No, you can
A
do it
motion-
as one.
Motion to amend the
Yes.
minutes?
That's fine, we can just,
Okay,
Approve it with.
No, you just
Then
have
to
to approve the minutes as amended,
Yeah.
right.
okay.
I have
Your
to
turn.
abstain.
Oh.
I have to
Oh,
abstain
that's
because I
right.
wasn't there, so
That's
you have
right
to.
there.
You want to make that motion?
so moved, the amended
And I'll
minutes.
second it. All those in
Sorry.
favor? And Anne Marie is abstaining.
That's fine, I was just gonna take turns with you, but.
That's all right, I'll get the next one.
Hey, I'm amazed we ran this many meetings and managed to have a quorum in every
There
single
was a
one.
lot of meetings.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
meetings.
it's a lot of meetings.
There's a lot of minutes.
Yes.
God bless you all.
You get an award at the end of this thing,
Yeah,
that's
Mike.
for sure.
Okay, next one is
Dodd Middle
Dodd.
School, this
Okay.
was an interesting meeting.
And this was
Well-
210.
I mean, look.
I know it's,
Well, here we did get a lot of program discussion.
Yeah, like, and I do, I think at the Dodd and the high school meetings, our physical buildings are preventing our teachers from teaching the programs they want to teach. I don't
Right.
think there's any doubt about that. I think there's a lot of wish things at the elementary school level for some larger things, but it's
And
not
maintenance
preventing,
things,
yeah, but it's not preventing them from teaching. I mean, here, it's preventing the way they want to teach. So I think that's number one, and then a lot of things, it's another old building, but
and preventing them from being able to teach in the new, to the new standards that
Right.
are going on.
Right.
Right,
The buildings
so-
aren't supporting the new things that are
Yeah,
happening.
so some of it was maintenance.
Definitely.
and-
Yeah,
and-
definitely.
And obviously, there's a lot
Yeah.
in here regarding maintenance and leaky roofs
Yeah.
and water leaks through windows and all that kind of stuff. But once you took that out, then you also had lots of stuff in there about inadequate
Yeah.
space
Yeah.
to do a lot of the programs that they wanted to do. Layout of the building doesn't really accommodate some of the teams that they have, and the fact that it's a 7-8 school instead of a 6-7-8 school was something that was really focused upon.
And I think in this case, I think the physical location of that building makes it tough to be a middle school. I mean, I don't think it has the physical space to adequately support a middle school. The field, like
Yeah,
everything,
the
even the
fields.
fields and
The
stuff,
The
it's
fields
not,
came up in
it's
multiple.
not a middle school campus, like in
Right.
my mind, it was not well chosen to be a middle school, you know, like
Well,
it
we
just
went to visit
doesn't.
North Haven,
Oh, yeah,
which
I've
they
been
had
there.
just
Yeah.
renovated and added on to.
Mhm.
Of course, it has a turf field, it
Yeah.
has, I mean, you talk about fields,
Definitely,
it was
right.
two different worlds.
Yep.
But even the building itself,
Yeah.
the North Haven building was open and bright and, very well laid out. Whereas ours is, not designed as a middle school.
Yeah.
It was a small junior high school that's had several additions put on it. But the fields did come up several times.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
Sure.
it was embarrassing as the staff talked of being
Yeah.
embarrassed as other people
Absolutely.
came to our schools.
Absolutely.
So that, the size, the space, getting sixth grade in there, I think
Sixth
those
grade,
are all things that we
absolutely.
have to focus on.
Yep. Yeah, and if that building remains a building, then it has some, I think it definitely needs some serious
I
love,
underline,
some serious love.
I
but as
underline
the
on
middle
page
school-
3, the lack of an auditorium,
Yeah.
the fact that the stage is so small, and the numbers I thought that they gave out, 120 students came out for drama, only 45
Yeah.
could participate. 50 who wanted to be on the stage crew. I was one of those guys who used to do lighting and things. Only
And
15
also
could
as well.
participate. Those are the kinds of things that middle-aged kids
Should be able to do.
are still exploring and learning.
Trying to
and,
figure out what they like to do and want to have experience with that, absolutely.
Yeah.
They should be able to do that.
The fact that the CAF is so small, they have to run 4 lunch waves, so you're running lunches over a,
And I mean, the
2-3 hour
parking,
period.
it's everything.
I underline the fact that the band room doesn't accommodate the whole band, and that they're storing instruments in lockers in various places. No outside bathrooms for the sports facilities. So those are the things that I wrote. So. Anything else on Dodd?
Definitely priority to address it. Middle school.
Yeah, that's what it.
One of the questions I'll have as we go along, just as a member, is whether Dodd could become an elementary school.
Yeah, yeah, I
Whether
think
it
it's
is
a valid
building that's
consideration.
in fairly decent shape that could be, with some minor renovation, accommodate elementary and close down some of our older
Yeah.
buildings. So I think
I
it's
think
worth
it's-
just keeping that in
I
mind.
would agree.
Yeah, I
It's
want to
definitely-
know, with the size of the complaint about the size of the classrooms there, I think that would be something to keep in mind, because, and again, I wasn't on that tour with you all, I've been in those classrooms, but the classrooms do, if they're not going to work for middle school students, again, middle school kids are a little bit bigger,
Yep.
we'd have to just be really careful that we don't renovate something that's not gonna work for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if I
But they're-
recall,
or
and
if
it
you
would
could
be up to
renovate them
our,
with different
Right.
it would be up
rooms
to
and-
our architects or whatever
Yeah.
to look at it, but if I
Yeah.
recall, a lot
They're
of
still
those
bigger.
rooms had like sheetrock type walls in between. They had, they weren't block
Yeah.
walls, so
That
you
would
could
be
go
good.
in and rip out walls and make double-sized rooms.
And they might still be bigger than like Chapman, for example.
Right,
Right,
because
and
it's a
also-
good-sized building,
Right.
and you probably wouldn't need every
Right.
single room to accommodate the elementary
And
population.
if we're moving
Especially if
sixth
it's K through
graders
5,
out,
it's
yeah.
K through
Yeah,
5.
exactly.
Yeah,
The kids are
Certainly a
smaller.
consideration.
yep.
And there
Right.
are science classrooms there, so some of those fifth graders could get
Yeah.
actual science.
I
Well,
just
if you
recalled
have
that it was
science labs,
such
yeah.
an issue for them, and it
Yeah.
didn't come up as much of an issue at the elementaries, and those classrooms tend to be a little bit on the bigger side as in comparison, so I just,
The
that's
dog
all I
classrooms
stood
are
out.
big, or smaller than
yeah,
elementary.
Yeah, those classes are about 650 square foot, the ones we were in.
Yeah.
Our elementary room should be 850 to 900, and kindergarten room's probably closer to 1,200. So you're about
Okay.
1.5, so if you took 3
Yeah.
rooms and made it into 2 by moving some walls around and stuff.
Or potentially where Humiston goes, you never know. You never know. Humiston and central office, you never know.
It's close to the high school, yeah.
Right.
Huge building for that.
Well,
Big.
That won't be ours to,
And
that's gonna
but
be.
you,
all
but you
community
have
space.
birth to 3 that potentially up in Darcy and other things that,
Right.
could fit in that building.
And it could be used for community space, the
Yeah.
gyms could come
Yeah.
for like Park and Rec could use it.
Heck of a lot better than what Humiston currently has, or, like Darcy.
To
like-
me, at least, that's not a building that you walk away from. That
Right.
building is still salvageable.
Agreed,
So,
agreed. And if you put things like that in it, the park, like, the demand isn't on the park, the demand isn't on the fields, it's not on any of that other stuff. It's
Right.
just the building,
Yeah.
it's just the building.
Well, that's
the
why
fields would be-
parking and fields would work fine if it were something like an
Right.
elementary school. It's totally inadequate.
I don't know, the parking is still small for elementary, I think.
Well,
for
except for
events.
programs, I think.
For
you'd be
events,
okay.
For
and
events.
for drop-off, you're not alleviating any of those issues for parent drop-off or parent pickup in that neighborhood.
And that
Yeah,
was
it's
true,
tough.
Yeah.
the drop-offs in almost every building we have. We've got kids
Yeah.
walking between buses
Yeah,
to get.
and it's-
But I like the idea of Humiston there, like the fields even would be.
That's what I mean, a
vast
huge upgrade from
improvement
what they have now.
currently.
And if we, let's just say, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but if we move Doolittle kindergarten to Doolittle, what is left at Darcy? Just the
Birth to
preschool
3,
program?
yeah.
And birth to 3 offices, and most of that work is done in the home, right? And it's just the preschool program then,
If you moved kindergarten out,
right? Just preschool,
Yeah.
still there, right? And the
Preschool,
birth to 3 folks are
and
housed
There's
there.
about
Gym.
100 students, I think, in the preschool program.
Smart Start.
Yeah.
Put them upstairs in Dodd, put Humiston downstairs with the offices for the admin.
Well, you can't have
Yes.
preschoolers in the second floor of the building.
No?
No, by
Oh,
law,
okay.
they have to be on the ground
Oh,
floor.
okay. Well, then switch it.
Yeah, there's enough rooms
Here,
downstairs.
that's right, there's
You'd
enough
have to do some
space.
bathroom things and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Well, it would need to be renovated, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's a viable
To make it
building.
work.
It's a viable building for something potentially other than a middle school.
Do I have a motion to accept the
I will
minutes
make
for
a
that?
motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, moving right along. Cheshire High School, and we have 2 sets of minutes here, because we have both an AM and a
That was
PM meeting.
yes, I was at the AM, yes.
And, I was really pleased with the turnout. I didn't know, how many high school people would come out, but boy, they not only came, but there were several people came in the morning,
Standing
came back in the
remotely.
afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Had such a wonderful time, they came back again. We got into the afternoon session, said, I don't think anyone's coming, and we ended up having standing room only.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much, where to start. There's so
Yeah,
much at the
it's-
high
there's
school.
There's a
there's a
lot.
huge
There's just
amount.
so much.
I tried to break it up as best as I could.
Do you want to just talk about the morning first and then the afternoon?
I
Yeah.
think we can just talk about the school
we
in
could talk about
general,
the
and I don't
school.
think we
Yeah.
have to.
I mean, like Dodd, I don't think that building physically accommodates learning the way that our teachers want to be teaching right now. There's no flexibility in the classrooms, there's no room to do breakout groups, there's just no, so many limitations.
Science labs are,
They're just all falling
in
apart
terrible
at this
shape.
point. The whole
Uh,
building is falling apart at this point.
one of the things, we had the opportunity to go see Guilford High School. And there you did have the kind of science labs we were talking about, where you had an instructional space and you had a lab
Lab
space. It was divided off into pods,
Yeah.
which had 5 or 6 classrooms in one area that kind of broke it off into smaller areas. It had, as we have, a couple of gyms, but they were connected so that you had one big gym that could be divided. You had a second smaller gym right next door that could be used for other activities. It was just thought out, where Cheshire High School has had addition after addition after addition, to the point where it's, something of a hodgepodge
Yeah.
of a building. Auditorium clearly is very small. We're probably not gonna build much bigger because of the new state requirements, but,
And I know the building is accessible, but in reality, good lord, what a hassle for anyone to use any of
And they
And,
talked about
like,
that.
crazy,
If you
yeah.
had a child in a wheelchair that's at one end of the
Go
building,
outside
you
sometimes
gotta
to
go
get
all the
like.
way
it's-
down and around to get to an elevator,
So I
and
know
then
by-
down and all the way back
On
again.
paper, it's accessible, but the reality is it's
Mhm.
really not well,
Right.
not accessible.
Because it was added on to later,
Yeah.
so, it's not easily accessible, although on paper,
Yeah.
it probably meets some of the code at least. A lot of stuff in terms of the drama programs
Yeah.
and the inadequacy of the spaces and, the shop
Yeah,
downstairs and
cooking,
getting stuff
shop, all
up.
of
and
those things.
No room to do a lot of the programs that they want to do,
Right.
like adding to the culinary program, things like that. I don't know, what else did we have?
Yeah, I mean, similar, just,
Well, HVAC and,
I say similar things, HVAC,
All the maintenance
mold,
stuff,
yeah,
yeah.
maintenance stuff
mold,
too.
HVAC.
The tunnels underneath or,
Some of that has been
That
proven
was
to be
remedied about 10 years ago.
yeah, that was inaccurate according to what
That's
we've
what I
been
remember
told.
seeing that.
okay.
That all those tunnels have been remediated and there is no issue there. So where it was mentioned that school had to be
After-
emptied when they
yeah.
opened that up, that's not
Oh,
true
yeah.
from what I was told.
One of the things
Okay.
we heard there, we actually heard it, I think, everywhere too, was not enough power, not enough outlets.
Yeah.
That was
That's-
like across the board, like they just don't have,
Everywhere.
everywhere.
It's odd that came up where they're hanging.
Yeah, they just don't
cords
have
around
the
all
outlets
yeah.
in anywhere in the building, because obviously it
Well, when
wasn't
you're
needed back
building
then.
buildings in the 1950s
Yeah, you didn't need
and
anything to plug
60s,
in.
as long as you
Yeah.
had your
Use books.
overhead projector
Yes.
or whatever, you were all
Yeah,
set.
so that was a big issue though across the board
yeah.
too.
And then security after school hours. There's so much security during the school hours to get into the building, but then there's still kids there at, from 2
Anybody
to
can walk in
9,
at night.
and there's no security at all.
And a
That's
lot of the
concerning.
schools, a new school that you'd be building today, you would build it, it could be blocked off. So for instance, Guilford High School had its regular entrance that you came in, but then had another entrance on the side that just led to the gym and led to the auditorium and had a big area in the middle that's used as the cafeteria. But you empty that out and that becomes a gathering space, but you can't get into the rest of the building.
Right, and that's
from
great
there.
for public
Yeah.
use.
Right,
But
and that's what they did, they accommodated the public use without making the whole building accessible to
But I think
everyone.
the bigger concern was that all those kids staying after school for drama or band or shop or whatever are in that building with no security at all. So the
Well, that's
doors
more
have
of
to
a
be open.
staffing issue than, yeah.
Yeah, but being able to get people in there that need to get in there and allowing them to go where they need to go.
Right.
And still be able to be safe.
Yeah, but if you were designing the building from scratch, you probably could at least control better what parts of the building are being used.
Yeah, but it is
outside of school
ironic, like you
hours.
could get in there in
Yeah.
the evening.
Very easily.
Very easily.
Yeah.
I mean, you could walk
Just
into
walk
the
in.
high school anytime, yeah, you could go there right now and get in that building.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went
Easy.
into this, it'd be interesting to see what the full committee thinks, but I went into this truly being open to the idea of doing a renovation of the high school. And I kind of came out of it saying, I think that the high school maybe has reached the end. It's not like it's just an older building, needs to be renovated. It's a poorly designed building at this point. But we'll see what the
Yeah.
committee says.
Yeah, well, and yeah, and it depends, because sometimes what renovate to new just means you have to keep like one thing, you know, like,
Right.
it seems like it's pretty much new construction except for something.
Well, and I've seen that in a
Right,
couple of
so
places.
if
If you
that
watch the old
works better.
Yalesville School in Wallingford,
Yeah.
they basically kept the front wall of the old building and then
Yeah.
built a whole new school off
Yeah.
the back of it.
But yeah, I would say for me, like, this was where we heard like teachers say, well, I go to continuing education, I get so excited, and I come back to my classroom and I can't do it. I'm
Right.
Like, that's like awful.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's really a
Yeah,
problem.
really small rooms.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Inadequate furniture
Yeah,
came
but
up in
even,
a lot of
even,
these
yeah, but even
areas.
furniture wouldn't work because the rooms are just too small to
use the
accommodate,
furniture.
you know.
Yeah, you got a room that's 650 square
It's
foot,
too
and
small.
you put 20
It's too
big
small.
high school kids.
Yeah.
These high school kids get
Yeah.
bigger every year.
And again, as I said, from the front, it looks like a nice building, but boy, you get in that building and it's not in
It
good
may be a
shape.
problem.
It's really not in good shape.
It may, for the committee to sell a new high school, because people look and say, we just built a new high school.
Yeah, it's really not, like, people need to get in those buildings.
The other thing we could take into consideration is that it is the shelter too for
Yeah.
the town. So
Right.
if we do build a new one or renovate this one, we have to keep that in mind as well and make it functional for emergency use.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right, then, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of,
I'll make a motion for the morning session.
okay,
I abstain.
I'll second that.
I will make a motion for the afternoon session.
And I'll second that. All those in favor?
For the afternoon? Yes.
Okay.
Both, whatever. Yeah, abstain from the afternoon.
Did you get all that? Okay. All right. Chapman.
Chapman.
Oh.
That breaks my heart, it breaks my heart. Really breaks my
As
heart.
a Chapman parent,
Well,
can you
let me
look
tell you something.
objectively and say it needs to be closed?
Let me tell you something, because I was at
Okay.
Chapman when the very first utter of closing Chapman was made, like 10 plus years ago. And it was devastating, and everyone and now believe me, the way that came about was really horrible, so it was not done well at all, and the
Okay.
plan for it was just like to take Chapman and scatter them across the, so like it was
Yeah.
bad. That's not how you would close an elementary school. But I would say, it's a great school. I love the fact that my kids were in a small environment. It just always, I just always thought it was a great school until I toured Highland. Honest to God, I then, through this go tour Highland, and I'm like, oh my God. They should have closed Chapman and sent my kids to Highland.
Highland's 50 years old.
I know, but I just like,
Imagine if you went and
you
saw
just
your
don't
new
know,
school.
as a new,
You don't know what you don't know.
you don't know what you don't know, and as parents coming through elementary school, if it's your
don't know.
first time and you've never been in another town,
Yeah.
I thought the school was great. Like, I was happy that my kids got a great education, we loved it there. But good God, like if you, and I guarantee if we make the decision to close Chapman, all we have to do is literally
tour.
let those people go and look at our other schools and think the classrooms, the library in Highland. I was like,
When I walked in the library
I
at
can't
Chapman, I couldn't
believe this. That's what
Yeah,
I mean. Like,
exactly.
and so I do
Opposite.
think it's so important for people to see the other buildings, because after touring Highland, I was like, man, I wish they closed Chapman and sent my kids to Highland.
As we were doing the tour of Chapman, there were a couple of people that were on the tour that had been students there. And they have such warm memories.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
this was my
do,
old
you do.
classroom. And I'm walking
But-
through as an ex-elementary principal who's been in numerous buildings in my life saying, this is horrendous.
Yes.
No handicap accessibility, a library that felt more like a dungeon than a
And
library.
I gotta
The
tell
art in the
I gotta
trailer.
tell you too. I don't know. My kids haven't
Oh, that's
been out for a while. My kids hated library, and I've known that to be pretty true at Chapman. And nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with librarians, but
It's the
the
basement.
kids at Chapman do not enjoy library. Do not like library class. Do not.
It's the location.
But how awful! Where like elementary kids should love going to library.
Right.
And then you
Right.
walk into Highland where they have windows out into the courtyard.
Oh my God!
And there's
It was
double
night and
levels.
day.
Yeah.
Believe me, I was just like, they should have closed Chapman and let my kids come to Highland School.
Yep.
Well, that's
They've
good feedback.
transformed a
That's
few
good to know.
things in that library recently, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's just, and they, like I said, the staff is wonderful and they do incredible work, and I think they love it there as much as the kids and parents love it there. But they're working in a building that,
Yeah, and that came through loud and clear. They love the school.
yeah.
They love what they're accomplishing.
Yeah.
They feel like they're a very close community.
And I do think that might be the biggest pushback is
Right. I
the
think
size.
what they love
is the
is
size.
the size of a neighborhood school.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I don't know that we can design a whole
Community.
school modernization program
With that,
over
right.
the fact that they want to keep that
Yeah,
small
no, I agree.
Right.
school.
Right.
But, as you know, the handicap accessibility thing, to me, is a major issue.
Yeah.
The fact that you could not get to the cafeteria, the library, the band room, the psychologist's office without going downstairs, and you can't get to a number of the classrooms without going upstairs. So, that building is horrendous for any student, parent, staff member who can't go up and downstairs.
The gym also stood out to me is that it was very small. There's really
Yeah.
no way to do a lot of large activities in there. They have to go outside, and that depends on the weather. And then, like you said, you go to Highland, and they have a double
Yeah, double
size-
gym.
Yeah, it's
Double
with
gym.
giant ceilings.
It's a much
and
bigger school,
And it's
but-
not
Yeah.
even the cafeteria either, or the auditorium.
Right.
That's a separate room too.
Right.
So you're using all of that at
In
Chapman.
one space.
Now, I have to say, my kids went to Highland, I never had the sense that it was a huge building.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I was
absolutely. Yeah.
surprised
That
when
way.
I went there, because I'm used to most elementary schools being 400 to 500, and at that time, I think Highland had close to 1,000 kids.
And Marilyn was there, my daughter taught there for 17 years, she loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it
and
was
yet,
like 900 students.
Yeah.
and yet,
Which is big.
the way it's divided up, the way it was structured, you didn't have a sense
Well,
of being in a
well, it's
huge
funny because
immersive
it is
school.
almost set up in pods, like,
It is.
like it's
Yes.
totally in
Yes.
pods.
There
Yeah,
are
like here's
pods,
kindergarten,
there are
here's this,
pods,
so.
yeah.
Right.
So when you're in kindergarten,
Yeah,
that's
you're
the
in
only
kindergarten,
place
like,
to
you
go.
don't-
And
you're
you
not
go to the
gonna be
library,
bumping
or
into
the
That
cafeteria.
must have been a very well-planned modern building in
Yeah, at
its
the
day.
time,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It was,
That
I
it
was on the
has-
committee.
Oh, look
We
at that.
selected the first principal.
Yeah, well, here you are 50 years later, and
And
it
there's still
doesn't
good
feel old.
things
It
about
felt
it,
like
right.
it's held up pretty well.
Yep.
And.
Some maintenance things, some HVAC, windows,
Yeah,
but
same.
Some open
Stuff that can
spaces
be
that need to
fixed.
be closed up, some
Yeah.
things like that, but, I mean, we're jumping
I
ahead,
know,
but Highland, you know, clearly is such a difference from Chapman. And then you had the same issues, the heat in the rooms, you know, things like that, that just did not work at all.
I came out of Chapman thinking that should be closed.
That's how I felt too. And I
And
had a
know it's a sore
discussion,
subject,
I had a
but
discussion with someone else from
for
our
the
committee
benefit of the
recently,
children in that
who said
class,
that we
yeah.
could renovate it. I'm looking, I'm saying, I don't know how you renovate that
for
school.
the benefit of the kids in that school, I really feel like it should be closed. And I know that's going opposite of like, no, we love it, we want to be here.
I agree.
Um,
I mean, like I said, I feel like I have a lot of old sentiment, old baggage with Chapman, but you can't deny when any, I mean,
Well, we'll see what comes
Any of
out.
the
It could
other
be we build a
schools.
brand new school and call it Chapman
Right.
2.
Tear down a new one, absolutely, that
Or
could be
we-
possible.
Take Dodd and move the kids there and call it Chapman. I don't know, you
Yeah.
know.
well,
but,
yeah,
there's
well,
things
then
you
then
can
that
do.
gets into, you know, and I don't like to say it, but I personally would favor redistricting if we put a school somewhere else versus just taking a school and moving those kids, because then it doesn't make sense anymore, you know, like,
You have to.
Well,
just, you have to redistrict, and I know no one
Districts
likes-
don't make all that much sense to begin with,
Like,
but.
yeah, they really don't, but to have
Depends on
someone.
how it's done.
And
I've done it a few times in my
we would need to
lifetime.
I've done
redistricts.
And it worked
redistricting
out.
several times and it worked out in the end, but it was always
It's a
very
difficult-
emotional.
Yeah, it's
when you
pain,
were doing
and it is emotional, but like I said, I can't see us closing Chapman and just like moving all those students to like, let's say it was Dodd. It makes no sense, you're gonna have
Yeah.
people walking by Dodd to to go to Highland, like it just doesn't
Yeah.
make sense.
That wouldn't be
Well,
our
let's-
issue anyway,
Once
that's.
we survive a pandemic, redistricting will be no problem.
Maybe it won't be in school at all, we'll just, we don't need school
That's right, we don't
buildings.
need schools
We'll just-
anymore.
We'll just
Our
go all.
committee is done, we're just gonna school from
Oh
home.
my goodness.
No, no, no.
No, do not
No,
say
no.
we're staying in school, let's hope.
Let's hope.
We do not want our kids
How
not
did they
being in
close
school.
Region 14, I saw.
This is
Yeah.
getting crazy,
It
so
is.
please stay open.
Okay, that's all
Yeah.
I have on.
Chapman.
Anything else?
So the consensus is that Chapman School would be the school to be closed?
Well,
Is that what the-
that's not our decision right now.
No,
Yeah.
that's
That's not
one
our
of your
decision.
recommendations,
Right.
is what I'm saying.
We-
Well, that's not even our
No, it's not your
decision to
purview, you
make.
just
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're
relaying
just,
the input.
yeah, we're just, you know.
I think
We're
the
laying
takeaway on Chapman is that
It needs a lot of work
it
if we're
just,
going to continue
yeah,
using
right, when you're talking about school modernization and Chapman and,
Yeah, there are a lot of issues that are there. I think it would, that's a school that needs to be near the top of our agenda in terms of dealing with the problems that are there. And then I think individually, we've expressed
Yeah.
some feelings that the whole committee will have to deal with in terms of, do you close it, do you renovate it, what do you do with it? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes for Chapman?
So moved.
second?
All those in favor?
Hi.
Okay. Highland, we have talked about.
The Taj Mahal.
Well, ironically,
Imagine that.
and you know, we went up to South Windsor, we looked at the new buildings that they built up there. As I've said, I was in charge of building a school in Region 15, which is now 22 years old, but it feels fairly new. So I'm looking at it through those eyes and going into Highland, but Highland has held up very, very well for a school that's 50 years old.
Yeah.
You know, you don't look at it, usually you need a major renovation of a school that's 50 years
That was
old.
well built, I bet.
Yeah, and you didn't have a sense you needed some window replacement, some heater replacements, some, you know,
Most of-
things like that.
Most of it was about the windows and the heating.
Yeah, it's handicap accessible
It's
already.
air conditioned.
It's fully air conditioned, except I think the gym is not, but other than
Right.
that. it is
Support
air
for getting
conditioned.
6th grade out of there, across the board.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Saw that there too.
And that, except for a couple of parents at Chapman,
Yeah, I think all
was
teachers
really
supported
across
that.
the board.
Yeah, I think all
Everybody
teachers
felt 6th
supported
grade
that.
would be better in the middle school. And even a couple parents at Chapman, they were looking at it both through their teacher eyes, where they
Yeah,
said,
more for
yeah,
them,
probably
yeah.
should go there, and their parent eyes saying, I want to keep my kid in
Yeah,
Yeah.
in elementary as long as I can.
The parking at Highland, there is a separate area for drop-off, so that's good, but they all converge to the same exit point, so that's bad. So if we are gonna do something there where we're bringing
Better
the
flow.
sixth grade out and putting more kids in, maybe looking into different type of parking.
Yeah, I don't, other than making another driveway, I don't know what you can do. I mean, it would be nice if you had one way in and a different way out. And
There's also a little path over towards Eastgate, but I know that would
You
encroach on
couldn't put a
people's
driveway
property.
through there.
Right.
That's a small path between two houses.
Without having to take away
You'd have to take a
houses,
house.
yeah, exactly.
But you might also, I don't know if, I don't recall whether there's space over on the other side of the police station where you could make
I don't know.
another road coming out, so buses and cars came in one way and went out another. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's for architect type people to
Right.
look
Engineers
at.
figure out.
And I
But
think
it
it's
was a lot
worked all these
safer,
years and
yeah.
it probably continue to
Yeah,
work.
it's a lot better than a lot of the Situate
Yeah,
schools.
and Scott seemed to be pretty happy just with the fact that they changed the timing on the light a little bit,
Right.
so that
Mm,
the cars
more in
moved
and
out.
out.
And they already have their kindergartners in there, so if we were to move sixth grade out, it would be less people that would be dropping off and
Right.
picking up.
And we'll see what
kids in
happens. Now, the
school.
original plan did call for moving the preschoolers to
Mm.
Highland, and they were gonna put an addition onto Highland and move all the preschoolers there.
If you
So-
move the sixth graders out, do you
You
still
wouldn't need it, I don't
Would
think.
we need an addition if we move?
Well, see, the original plan did call for closing Chapman, and closing Darcy. So one of the ways that they dealt that,
To
even
add
by
on
moving
to
the sixth
Highland.
grades out, they were
Hmm.
redistricting
Gotcha.
and moving the preschoolers into Highland, so they needed to do that. All right, anything else on Highland?
I don't think so.
All right, motion to approve the minutes?
Your turn.
I have to abstain for these two, I was not at Highland or Norton.
You were not Highland?
You were, no, I wasn't. How did you go on the tour? Oh, you went on the.
The tour was a different day.
Right.
Our regular committee
Yeah.
meeting, I missed
The
those.
Chapman
I was
was on the
confusing
same
them.
day, but
Yeah,
Highland
okay,
was two
right.
No, I
different
missed the
days.
last two in concessions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be there Monday.
moved.
They're not there
I know.
Monday. I will be
Move to
there.
approve the minutes.
And I'll second it, and all those in favor? And Anne Marie abstains. Norton,
So, similar setup, I thought, to Chapman, the way you walk in and the way it's kind of organized.
the entranceway
the
they
entrance
saw as
was-
a real problem.
Right,
There's
same thing,
no-
you walk in the door and then you have to go around before you get to the office.
Right, so there's no
Um,
entranceway, and so no place where you can really pull the kids together at like bus dismissal or anything like that.
Or
which
greeting
they-
guests
Right,
and
so they saw that
security.
as a security issue.
Yeah.
Once you're buzzed in, they said you can zip right by,
Yeah.
and then they gotta go running after you.
Right.
Um,
Same thing at
Decent
Chapman.
gym. The art room was a big issue. That's the one that was in the portable in the
trailer?
back.
In the trailer, that was a huge thing.
Yep, and,
Norton is definitely usable, but we should do something about those trailers for sure.
the library was very small, I felt,
Mhm.
and was way off around the outside. I don't, I mean, that's something again to take a look at, but, an elementary library ought to be central to a school, easily accessible, if you're gonna design it from scratch.
I agree, it was very small.
Yeah. Again, they talked a lot about maintenance issues, plugs in the classrooms,
Storage.
storage, different size lockers around the building.
Oh, there's a lot of old equipment that was left in classrooms as far as pipes and heating things. Maybe there's a way we can get that out of there.
Well, if you were gonna do a full renovation, that's probably the kind of thing you could take a look at. A lot of the new buildings now have individual AC type units overhead in the classroom, and then basically just have one pipe that goes down to a central unit. So you could take out all that stuff that's, the old radiator type things that are down along the bottom. But, I mean, that's a possibility.
Someone had mentioned security issues and the training that she was going to told them that they should try to use windows as exits, and windows can't be opened.
But a lot of schools are built with windows that don't open up so that people can
Big
get in
enough
and
to
out
get
of
through,
them.
right.
So I know that was part of their training,
I think
but I
the
mean, you're gonna
problem
find,
the problem with this one was these windows are meant to be opened and they can't open.
and they can't open them, so
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah.
But I think,
But
you
you're
know,
right.
to say that that is part of the process, I think, you know, you're gonna find
Yeah.
probably 50% of the schools out there
Can't open those.
that don't have windows that can be open that people can get out of.
Mm.
They talked about the bus drop-off. Again, same
Dangerous.
situation
Yes,
with the
so-
buses in front, the parents coming off to the side, the kids coming through. You know, we seem to have, thank God, that we have not had an accident, but we have several buildings where we have kids being dropped off and then walking in between buses to get to the buildings. And, you know, our drivers, I guess, are very aware of that and, you know, very cautious, but, I mean, that's not how we design any building.
So this was a meeting where the art teacher had a 2-page letter about her concerns that she, I think, gave you a copy of.
Did she?
She did.
Okay, let me get my folder.
And just wanted to make sure that that got included with this. And that was maybe part of the emails.
These are the emails
Okay,
that
there.
have been
She didn't
sent.
email it, oh, maybe it's in the package.
It could be in, is it in today's package?
I'm looking. What's her name?
Jillian.
Oh,
So she's the one with the trailer then, right?
yes.
There's a whole bunch of them here.
There's several things here, but I don't see hers. Lisa Zeneca, Amy Russell.
That's who I've got.
Did she get up and hand it?
She did.
Renee
Yeah.
Allister.
Yeah, she didn't email it,
Tracy
she got up and
Agello.
handed it to you, I think, in the meeting. I felt she was very well spoken, very thorough. If we are going to put together something where we can publicize things, she would be a great person to select to speak.
But she's very passionate about her
Yes,
program
Yeah.
for sure.
and about the issues that she has there. She clearly has had problems where, you know, the room has gotten so hot you had to abandon it, where
Yeah.
you've got,
Oh, here it is. Is this the Norton school teacher?
Yes.
I got it right
The
here.
Norton art teacher. So I think that, does it need to be included with the minutes, or is part of the emails?
it could
or-
be added to her minutes.
Well, the only thing is the minutes are then filed with the town clerk and they have to copy all this and, so let me, it's up to you, whatever you want me to do.
Are we including the other emails that we've received?
They have not been up to now
Okay.
because you haven't
So-
approved any of the minutes yet.
Okay.
So it's your decision.
So the emails came after our meetings.
Yes,
That,
some of them did.
that letter though, she read during our.
Yes, she read
She
during
read it out
the
loud
meeting.
during, so if we,
This one I
Well-
can,
But remember, we also, like when we were at DOT, got a big thing that the principal had put together.
Oh, yeah.
And
what do we get?
it was like a
We got that
spreadsheet that he had
spreadsheet.
put together of all different
He had
topics.
surveyed
Oh,
the
yeah,
teachers,
that's
he had
right.
surveyed the teachers in advance.
And
Did
so-
we?
Chapman
Yeah.
School.
So I
I
don't
forgot
know,
about
I don't know where you draw the
See,
line in
Brian?
terms
Right.
of what we include and what we don't.
I think that was in place of not knowing if teachers were going to be at that meeting, and they all came.
And so we heard all of that.
You heard everything
Oh,
that was on there, yeah.
Okay. I have an extra set of the emails and the Norton school teachers are
I would
teaching.
like to include that.
So what I can do is include these with the minutes from this meeting as
Mhm.
attachments,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should become part of the record. The teachers took the time.
Right,
To
no, I
write
totally
those and
agree.
send them in.
I just had not included that because you had not approved the minutes.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
They
there
were
is a,
submitted, but not totally approved.
there is a paragraph in here from her, outlining what she said, but including that in here, I think would be good.
Yep.
Oh, you mean in
In
the-
your minutes.
In my
In your
minutes,
minutes.
yeah. Yeah, I summarized it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't put all of these in. Yeah, so these will be attached,
Perfect.
okay?
Anything else on
And then
that?
I still have some copies of
Let me
it.
look at it. There was a need for more special ed space.
Now we're back to Norton, correct?
Still
Right,
Norton,
yeah,
yeah.
we're still talking
So
about
if
Norton.
we got
Outlets.
sixth grade out of Norton, does that solve the storage issues? Or no?
Storage and.
I'm not, like the size, the
Special ed.
space issue, so like, does the trailer go away at the sixth grade?
You gotta get the
Yes,
trailers out of there clearly.
We have a couple of classrooms,
So
three,
there's probably only three
we're
sixth
in the
grades.
basement.
The sixth grade's amazing.
Yeah.
It's better than a trailer.
Well, the basement is the newest addition, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, that was added in 1990. After the middle school failed, they came back and they did additions at Doolittle and at Norton and at Dodd. And the addition at Norton was in the back of the building. It was a two-story addition. I think it was, 2 classrooms at each one or something. But I mean, part of the problem is these older buildings were not built at a time when you had the kind of science programs that we have presently, the kind of groupings that we have. You know, you just had kids in straight lines and you were standing in the front. So now you've got science kits, you've got math manipulatives, you've got all this stuff and no place to put it.
Yeah.
One of the things when I built the school that I built is we put a walk-in storage closet in every single classroom. And then we had a huge storage room down in the basement, just for that reason. You know, the architects are usually just trying to squeeze square footage, and that becomes a real secondary kind of thing for them. But it's one of the primary things that comes up for teachers.
Yep.
And then the locker issue also comes up, you know, what do you do with kids' coats and boots and, you know, and so oftentimes they put in lockers that are too small, or they don't put in lockers at all, and the kids are just cramming stuff into a coat area in a classroom, and then you end up with lice problems and all sorts of stuff. So as we look ahead, you know, those are the kinds of things that architects won't necessarily look at, but we should.
Right.
Okay,
Well said.
I move to approve the minutes of the Norton teacher input
Second.
session. David?
And okay. Now, I had put this together for you and sent that out a while back. And when I did, Anne Marie said she had some other ideas of how we could
Yeah, well, it's just,
present.
yeah, so I'm just, so just trying to think of how, and like, we can attach a lot of things. I'm just wondering in terms of sharing it with the larger group, how best to do that, so that it's just really the big takeaways, you know, in terms of what, you know, because they could read all the minutes, we could give them all the details of our notes. We don't necessarily have to go through that for them, so what are the, you know, like if we were gonna pull up the big themes, or what do we wanna say based on our input?
Well, that's what I tried
What
to
would
do
it be?
here,
Everyone-
although this may be longer than what
All of
you'd
these
like.
minutes
Yep.
were sent to the
I
entire
know,
committee.
that's, exactly, so that's my point, so they've had the
They've had
opportunity to
yeah.
read it, so coming
And
back to
Sylvia's told me she's read them
summarize.
all.
Yeah, and I'm sure most have, or at least
Well,
you know,
I
looked
don't
at them, you know.
I'm sure they all read them.
I think they all
Thoroughly,
read them.
thoroughly, and have highlighted various things. So I think,
Vital.
And I think you have the highlights here, but I'm just wondering if, do we pull it into more of a presentation that's just,
well, we could do both even.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes,
we could have
yeah.
a
PowerPoint rather
bulleted PowerPoint.
yeah, and then
And
you
then
could give,
hand this out
Yeah.
for the record,
yeah,
something along those lines. But, I mean, it's up to the
Yeah.
committee how you think this would best be presented.
Visuals are always
Yeah.
better, or help to supplement, and,
yeah,
you know, so that can't hurt.
We can certainly write up this
Especially
document.
if you triaged, you know, kind of the way you were all talking today, the things that really rose to the
Yeah.
top for you, and, you know, highlighted those places that you thought really needed to be addressed.
yeah.
And
So-
then this goes, you know, goes
Yeah.
along with it, because I think the report really synthesizes everything, so
Everything
you don't
nicely.
have to
Yeah,
go
you had
back
given me some
and read
suggestions, which
all the
I've
minutes,
incorporated.
you know? Right, you don't
Easier.
have to do that, you could just look and read these 11 bullets. But certainly, we've all been through meetings where there's lots of reading and,
Yeah.
you know, some kind of
No, I
like,
agree. I
visual
think we'd
could
be
help
best off,
support it.
even if you just had one bullet for each of these items. So you've got 6 here that are general overall issues, and then you've got individual buildings, Cheshire, Humiston,
Yep.
Dodd, Chapman, Norton.
Yeah, we just pull up, I'm just suggesting pulling
Like
it
a
up.
slide for
Yeah,
everyone
one slide
and
for
just
each
talking
one.
about what.
Yeah,
Highlights.
no, I didn't
Highlights,
put every
yeah.
school here because some of the schools like Doolittle I didn't put in because Doolittle's issues were almost all maintenance. They were covered in the first 6 here.
We should probably
We
at
should
least
do for
mention it
everybody.
and say, hey, this is
Yeah.
what came up there.
Or even just to say, look, Doolittle
Was
is,
mostly
is, yeah, Doolittle
Yeah,
is,
just what you talked
is a
about
good
here.
bill, you know, building is a good building, and most of the issues are maintenance from these
Yeah.
kinds of issues, like just to even say that, you know,
Yeah.
it's a good space.
And actually, I think we should mention the fact that kindergarten needs to be brought in.
Yes,
Mhm,
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Because that's a
And Highland,
program.
too, you don't have Highland on here, so.
Right,
Yep, same with Highland,
same
same with
reason,
Highland,
yeah.
in terms of,
Yeah, I did mention the kindergarten issue here someplace,
it was probably one of your general
Yeah.
upfront ones.
probably where I talk about the sixth grade out here in number 6.
Yeah, so the last part of number 6.
Along these same lines, teachers Doolittle express a strong desire to have the kindergarten
But maybe
student in the building. So I could,
including that
I
in the
could pull
Doolittle
that off
slide, yeah.
and make a separate Doolittle item, a separate Highland item, and I don't have Darcy on here because we haven't
haven't done
talked to
that yet.
Darcy yet.
When are we going to Darcy?
Monday,
Right, what time?
3.
3 o'clock.
And if we don't end up going to California, I'll be there. If we do end up going to California, I won't be there.
I will definitely be there.
We're
I will
still
be there.
debating.
So we're good, we got you covered, Rich.
Maybe you can cancel your flights and get these new $22
Oh my
ones.
goodness,
Yeah.
that's
That would be good.
crazy.
Get what?
It's crazy, you can go
Cancel your
anywhere right
flights and
now.
get
for
Oh,
that.
they charge $22? I spent more than that,
To
yeah.
Florida.
Yeah.
$22 flights to Florida.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
No, that's because nobody's going.
What's a great time to go?
Go spend a week at Disney World.
It's a great time to go.
10,000 other people.
You're not paranoid, it's a
It
great time
might
to
be
go.
nice, you go to Disney, be nobody there.
Yeah, think of the hundreds of thousands of people that are not going to the NCAA tournaments.
Who paid for tickets and
Tickets.
There are all
And
kinds of
those
issues
four
like that.
cities that counted on that
Well,
revenue
right,
income.
yeah.
what was it, Austin, Texas last week canceled a workshop that,
Yes, they canceled.
that goes on, yeah, that
Yeah.
that they make hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah.
The
dollars.
town
every year.
manager,
Hundreds of millions
he
of
went,
dollars.
he's from Austin.
Austin.
He was telling us about it last night at a subcommittee.
Yeah, they make like, I think it's 300 million a year or something they said from that, and
They
they
were kind of
canceled
lose
it.
it all.
So let me ask you a question. When do you all need to present this to the larger committee?
Well, we haven't penciled it in yet. Our next meeting is
Okay.
focused on something else
I
anyway.
know
Next
we're-
Definitely
meeting-
in April.
Is it Darcy?
Yeah.
But
April
then-
Next meeting was the interviews,
Next week is the interviews.
and then there's a meeting the beginning of April.
So
April
we'll
6th,
have April
Monday, April
6th, and then after that it'll be the 22nd. or the
Right.
next one. Oh, no, the 15th, no.
Are we doing
Yes.
it during April break?
Oh, April, oh, you know what, well, I guess we'll have, you know, April's one of those funny months where the
Yeah.
first Monday and the third Wednesday are literally back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
Because the
well,
first is a Wednesday,
Right.
so it kinda stinks.
April
So-
15th, tax day.
Is that April vacation, the week
Yes,
of the
it is.
13th?
Yeah, the week is
So
the
maybe
13th,
postpone it
yeah.
a week,
Yeah.
but then we'll be right back up against the next first Monday.
Yeah, we really
The
will.
only thing in the following week is town budget. We'll be in the final throes
Yeah.
of the,
We might still be
on the
doing it then,
budget.
and we
And
may
I'm-
have a
well-
skeletal crew because
And I have
people
public
might be-
building committee that Wednesday, the 22nd.
yeah.
We'll take a poll at our next meeting in terms
Yeah.
of who's gonna be around.
I just want to let you know, the council
Yeah.
members will be, and Board of Ed reps will be probably at those last week of those council budget work, there's a budget workshop and stuff, so.
If you decide to go with a PowerPoint and you want any kind of visuals, either from the schools or, you know, as you're building it,
Yeah.
just email me and
Okay.
I go out and try and get that for
Get
you.
some.
I don't know what it might be, but I'm just throwing that out
Well, I
there.
think, you know, as you see, we've got 8, we've got 11, and then we're adding 3 more, 12, 13, so 14. So if we had even one picture and took each of these bullets and, you know,
Some kind of
just
representation.
cut it down to a couple of words here and there, because you can't put too many words on a slide.
No.
And we had a picture of that building. So the first one, teachers now universally proud of the work there. Well, I don't know if that would, you know, you could do almost anything there. Second one, space requirements came up as an issue in almost every school level. So just a picture of a small classroom,
Yeah.
you know, and we could take, you know, half of the slide with the
Or
picture,
storage,
half of the
maybe
slide
some of
with a
the
couple of
storage.
words.
Any of these pictures?
And so probably receive pictures that we could pull.
Those are kind of dark. I think if we were gonna shoot, we'd be better
This
off.
one confused me.
Yeah, me too.
Filing
That's the
in the
thought of having it in a
bathroom?
bathroom, she said, yeah.
Oh, that's the.
She had no place to put it, so it's in
It's
the
right,
bathroom.
it's right next to the toilet.
That's true with a lot of them.
That was one thing that came up at Highland though too, is that they don't have very many staff bathrooms there.
They only have 4 in the whole building.
Yeah, I don't know if
2
that's
on
an
each
issue.
side.
It's a long,
It's a long walk.
mile walk.
Just go to the bathroom.
You gotta plan it.
So anyhow,
Yeah, we can see what we need visually.
All right, so I'll send you something.
So,
So do we want, I don't know, are we still back on schedule? Or do you want to schedule it for the 6th, or do you want to?
gives you a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we could do the 6th, and certainly if not, definitely by the next one, which is right now the 15th.
And if the 6th doesn't work,
Yeah,
then you
once
just,
we have it ready, and
yeah,
we can
just
pull
let
it
me
in
know
any.
and we'll,
Yeah.
we can always, something else comes up that we have to do.
Yeah.
So we'll just tentatively assume
Yeah,
it'll be the
the
6th.
Yep.
Let's just go through this if we can and
Yeah.
make sure that this is saying what we want it to say. And then I can work to put together a slideshow that I can send out to you and you can critique it. Okay?
I'm almost wondering whether your first overall ones might not be one slide. Well, except for
Because you're just
6.
gonna take a sentence or two from each one. You probably
A
could
couple
do
words,
that.
and they're
Yeah,
more
could be
universal,
one
you know,
slide, you're
in
right.
terms of our staff, a bullet about our staff. Space and storage is an issue everywhere.
Yeah.
HVAC and air quality is an issue everywhere. ADA compliance.
Or maybe even
Security.
like the title could be like
Yeah,
general
just-
things
just
from all
the-
schools.
Yeah, the
and-
overall things, and then go do some breakouts in terms of, all right, here are facilities that have programming issues, and then here are facilities that are generally good, but have
Yeah.
these, you know, like, maybe chunk it out so that these don't need 6 different slides, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah. I think the first point though is really important to make people understand that the teachers aren't very negative about this. They're
No.
all very positive, they're
No.
all working very hard, they all are very proud of what they do and are giving as much as they can.
Absolutely. I
It
mean,
wasn't like they were coming and complaining and having a negative attitude, and I wanna make sure that
Yep.
people
And that was
understand
true
Agreed.
everywhere. That's
I
something we ought to
appreciate
really
that.
stress.
I think
I
that
think
will
that's
go a
important
long
to
way
stay.
in this presentation,
Yeah,
you know.
I think
People are,
You just want what's best for, they're just
Yeah.
trying to do a better job teaching.
they want
and
the
they already-
kids to have a better experience, so I appreciate you noticing that.
Humiston more than any other school as well.
Yes.
They were so proud of what they do there, it was amazing.
It was very moving. I left there and I was like,
You were all very moved by it, because I wasn't at it, and then
Oh,
after
it
I
was-
saw you were all very.
they
I was
were,
like,
those
Yeah.
teachers were
It's a
just.
unique
Amazing.
program that
They
they
were
are
so-
very,
they
very
were
proud of
exceptional.
Yeah,
the
we did
outcomes that they get. And of course, it was a
Staff
very
too,
small
the
group
Yeah.
office.
of people that we were talking to. But
And
and I think it
was
was
so
true
proud
of
of
pretty
their
much
kids.
everywhere we talked. I mean, the Dodd people were the same, the Chapman people
Everybody
were
was
the
very
They
same.
all were.
positive.
You know,
They
they
all
came
were.
through as, we're really proud of
We will
what
be
we
advocates when the
achieve.
next union
Right.
contract.
But
Here's what
since
we
you
would need to go
asked,
the next step.
Right.
we're gonna be
Yes,
honest with you
exactly.
and tell you, because you're giving us the opportunity,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
here
And
it
I-
is.
And Doolittle, we had to pull a little bit,
Yeah.
but most of the cases, the teachers really came in.
And that was our
Ready to
first
go.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Word spread after that.
Yeah, right?
They're not really ogres.
No, I agree.
All right,
They
so
were great.
if we have no issues with the
I-
first,
Oh, we're going through 1 through 6, is gonna be one slide, and then you're gonna break out.
well, not necessarily.
Oh,
I gotta
no,
look
okay,
at it and
that's-
play
oh,
with
that's what it said,
You
so I'll
don't
just
want
work
too
out.
much text on a slide,
Right.
otherwise you lose
Or
people.
Definitely
So-
can condense this into
Yeah.
So,
like
but there may
general
be some
things.
places here where we can condense, so it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be 6 slides. It might be that we end up with 3 slides covering the 6 areas, or 2 slides covering, we'll see how it works out.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but even if you go very quickly and just, boom.
Yeah, well, I just think they're all
Classes are
very.
too small, boom.
Yeah.
We go to the next thing. So Cheshire High, number 7.
Yeah, I mean, I, like I said, I think the main headline at Cheshire is that the space does not allow for, I keep hearing it, 21st century learning. Our kids are not gonna get 21st century instruction at Cheshire High School.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
How do we get that point across?
I think we just say it and then support it with some bullets. I think maybe that's the headline, like
Yeah.
just cannot support, we feel that this cannot support,
Yeah, I wish I could bring the whole committee to Guilford and have them
Yeah.
compare the two and say, look how the building here really enhances the kind of
Learning,
program
the teaching.
versus what Cheshire's building is
Is
doing.
it Guilford that we have those big posters from
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yep,
Yeah.
and I took some slides that we have
Yeah.
also, for the committee that's going out.
It'd be interesting to show the slides at Guilford at the school.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't show them here,
Well,
but
they
if
might,
Sylvia
right?
wants, I kind of let, she's the chairman of that
I
group.
know, but I'm just.
But as,
Harrison.
yeah, as we've gone to each school, I've taken some slides and Jeff has taken some, and then we've put them into just a PowerPoint format. And they're all available, and I think Sylvia is still trying to think of how she
How to do
wants
it.
to.
Yeah.
Because we're not gonna go through all those buildings, or,
Yeah.
But, you know, we do have probably 10 slides on Guilford, which, you know, are quite interesting to look at. It's a very unique facility.
You need it, under Humiston, you need teachers, it says TEACHS.
Teachers.
Teacher.
Is missing.
Yeah. I typed this myself.
Oh, good, you did a good job. You
My
did a really
fingers
good
don't
job.
always work the way that the keyboard
I
wants it
didn't
to.
notice that either.
But usually I do run a spell check. but-
Like, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, even Humiston, you know, inadequate space for the program, and then some bullet points. I mean, that's just the reality.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Humiston, I don't know how many, you know,
And no one's gonna argue with trying to get Humiston shut down.
yeah. You know, you've got the gym upstairs,
They're
you've got,
finding it.
the classrooms are a decent size, but the bathrooms there are
They were
terrible.
big, yeah.
The office down below, the lack of a nurse's room,
like a
you know,
cave.
there's a bunch of stuff there that you can bullet. But if we even have just one picture, because you look at, you know, as just a citizen driving by Humiston School every day, it's a beautiful
Beautiful
building.
building.
Oh, it's an historic
And
building.
It should
until
be
I
a historic
walked
building.
in, and I've been in the front building, and,
Yeah.
you know, what always struck me there is just the myriad of stairways everywhere. that-
Doorways and.
Yeah, and I get lost, and I always end up going down the wrong stairway and ending up on the wrong end of the building. But that's the first time I've ever been in the classroom
side.
area.
Yeah.
And I was really
Yeah.
surprised, appalled, whatever word you want to use. Okay. Anything on Humiston? Dodd? So again, you're talking, but this again, I think is something dealing, you know, we want to highlight a middle school concept.
Yep, 6 to 8. And that's not just like, you know, coming into this, I'd say as a parent, I felt that just from nothing academically, but just as a parent thinking that our sixth graders are just languishing in the elementary schools, they're just too
Yes.
geared towards the little kids.
Yeah.
And in terms of growth, emotional, maturity, we need to get them out of there, but having gone through this process, I think there's enough evidence to say it's also a programming issue. I mean,
Right.
if curriculums are 6 to 8, and we have our sixth graders in with our K through 5, and they're not being exposed to the, you know, they should be being taught by science specialists, and, you know, like they should.
And that was something that
That's the
was highlighted by
standard,
the
so
teachers
that's a
all the way through.
programming issue for me.
But the other piece too, in terms of building, if you go to, like if you look at the plan that they had for the 6-8 school they were going to build,
Yeah.
you'll notice it's divided up by
Yeah.
teams.
Yes, so it
So
still
you've
stays
got your
small.
English, math, science, social
Yeah.
studies, sometimes world language.
Just like Dodd
All in
now.
a pod.
Right,
And you've got multiple pods in the
Yeah.
building. So the kids aren't in a huge building
Right.
for the most of the day, they're within that pod. Well, you go to Dodd and it's, you know,
Mm.
big long hallways around,
Yeah.
because it was built as a junior high school.
yeah. And they do the team
that's-
concept, but it's just not the same.
Well, the
Yeah.
team is, the teams are there, but the building doesn't
Yeah, it
enhance
doesn't support
the
it,
teams.
doesn't support it,
Yeah.
doesn't support the
Um,
education.
You know, and so, anyway, all right, so that's something we can do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chapman,
Chapman, Fort Chapman.
Overall,
couple of pictures down in the basement there.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
The inviting entranceway to the library where you have a metal door that you have to walk through that says, you know, am I in the boiler room or the library?
Yeah. There's so many, it just seems like there's so many violations there, I'm surprised we get away with it. I mean, I know it's grandfathered, but I'm just really surprised that we get away
Yeah.
with having kids in that building,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, Norton, I'm putting a little bit of my spin on this, so I want you guys to read it, because I know some people look at Norton and say, it's fine. I looked at Norton and said, no, it's not so fine, so.
Right.
It's all reasonable, it's all, you
Yeah.
know, I think that we can make Norton fine addressing these things.
Yeah.
Especially if we get sixth graders out and have a little more space. It's definitely usable,
Yeah.
but we'll need a lot of renovation.
Well, that's where the owner's rep is really gonna come in handy, because you can look at it now and say, look, we've identified the staff, everybody has identified issues with a school like Norton.
Mhm.
What do? Do you build a new Norton and knock down the old one, or do you go in and renovate the one that's what's there, and what are the price differences gonna be?
Yeah.
And how important is that?
That's
Does
right,
that
that's gonna be
become
on, like, the
year
30-year
one, or
plan.
does that become year 15,
Yeah.
depending on what the needs are?
And the outdoor area at Norton too was a concern. They had mentioned that kids could run off, and I don't know if it's
That was
fenced in there.
Chapman. Oh, no, yeah,
No.
there was some question about the backyard
Yeah,
area, although I think a lot of the schools don't have fenced-in fields, but that was mentioned by
Right.
someone. There was
Right.
also some discussion about the fact that the front is by the road. Chapman
That
was,
was
Playground.
Chapman was, that was a
Said
major
Chapman
issue
Punch
for the
was
principal,
yeah.
that was right along Route 10.
Wow.
Okay.
That was the playground area too, wasn't it?
It
You
is,
mentioned
yeah,
it.
it is. I mean, there's.
Both Norton and Chapman have
Mm.
playgrounds right on the road.
Yeah. So if I'm not, and I probably won't be at the varsity meeting,
Yep.
if you guys, well, I'll read the minutes, and then from that.
Yeah,
that
we'll
in
add what we need to add
And
for.
put together some slides and send it out to you and see what goes from there.
Okay, great.
This is very good, it's nice, it's concise, and
Yeah, that's
I
good.
think
Thank you.
it's easy for the committee to, rest of the committee to read.
Yep. And I played around with the format and ended up in the end
Very
doing
good.
it as
I think it's,
a memo from the two of us
Yeah,
to the committee.
it's well done.
And, all right, anything else we want to go over?
Here's the agenda. I lost it.
And we're all set? And I have a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor? Done.